Hey guys, welcome to the 7-Figure Box podcast. My name is Andrew Frezza, and today we are going to be answering the question, should you have 2 coaches in your classes? And this is a very simple question on the surface, but one that opened up a lot of subtopics for me. So I want to use this podcast to first address the question, but then also address the thinking that underlies this question and many of the other decisions and issues that we face within our business. Okay, so to summarize my take on the 2-coach thing, I think that most gyms go to a 2-coach system too early in their business life cycle. And once we do that, and I know because we did it ourselves, we set an expectation with our clients that for the cost of their monthly membership, they're entitled to a ton of individualized coaching within the group class environment. And I think that is a mistake, and I think we unfairly set ourselves up for the wrong expectations. And not only is it really hard to backtrack and eventually go back to a 1-coach system if you've already set that expectation that you're going to have 2 coaches in every class, but it can make it very difficult for us as coaches and owners to get our clients to understand the value of the expertise that we bring to the table if we've never set that expectation from the beginning. So I'm not trying to say that in a group class environment that you want to hold back your coaching or coach less in that environment. I actually think it's the opposite of that. But when it comes to strategically setting up the business and figuring out what we want our coach to athlete ratio to be, I think that we can all be just a little bit more restrained with that and a little bit more smart with that and know our numbers a little bit better. So I just wanted to kind of point out that one of the thoughts that I had with this is that I don't think that individualized coaching is the primary value of what people are paying for when they pay for a group class. And I feel confident saying that because there's a lot of examples out there like your Orange Theories, your Soul Cycles, your yoga classes out there where the market is saying we're willing to pay for these services, and they're willing to pay usually on average more per class than they're paying a lot of CrossFit gyms out there. And the market is saying we're willing to pay for these services without necessarily getting a ton of individualized coaching in those environments, which seems to be the case that most of those classes are providing a great overall experience, but they're not providing a ton of individualized coaching. So I think within the group class environment, I think a lot of times as CrossFit owners, we mistakenly think that the primary value we're providing is the individualized coaching, whereas I think it's more of an auxiliary benefit of the group class. And when we look at the primary benefit of a group class, I think it's things like having a clean and organized facility. I think it's things like having up-to-date and well-organized or well-maintained equipment. I think it is having a well-thought-out lesson plan and programming. I think it's having a welcome and supporting environment. And ultimately, if we're able to provide the best hour of someone's day where they're getting healthier, they're getting fitter, they're having a good time, if that can take place without a ton of individualized coaching, then I think that person is still getting that value of $10 to $20 that they might be paying us for that class. And the personal coaching is really just an auxiliary benefit of that group class. It's not the primary benefit. And if people want personalized coaching to be the primary benefit, that's where that person should be paying for something like personal training, and that should be something that you offer at your facility for them to be able to get more of what they're looking for if that's what they want. And I know some of you guys don't necessarily agree with that, but it's a mistake that I believe that we made. So I feel like I want to really get this message out there to you guys, because for us, we really committed to that 2-coach system just a little bit too early, I think. And then it put a lot of unnecessary pressure on us financially because we didn't have really any profit margin early on to support being able to reinvest in the business, grow our team, grow different roles within the business. And it took us a while to really get our feet under us because we committed to that 2-coach system just a little bit too early. And I think that I see that with a lot of gym owners out there. I see a lot of new gym owners, potential gym owners out there that they have this mindset of committing to excellence. It's an incredible mindset to have as a gym owner, as a business owner. And the mindset is that we're going to do it better than the current gym that I'm at or the guy down the street. And we're going to do it better by offering 2 coaches in every single class that we have, right? It's the right idea, but what's missing is that the numbers have to work in order to support the two coach system. It's not just the idea of having two coaches that's valuable, it's the execution and the numbers that need to support that as well. And we have to realize in business that what makes us special or valuable as a business owner, as a leader, is not the thought that we had or the idea that we had. The ideas are a dime a dozen. Ideas are not special, but it's the execution of the idea, or maybe some kind of unique advantage that we have that allows us to execute on that advantage in a unique way and provide something unique to the end consumer, right? So what I'm thinking about specifically is, think about like a company like Walmart or Costco. It's not that they decided to have the lowest prices in town that makes them more valuable than other companies that have to charge more for their products. It's that they have specific ways, whether it's Costco buying in bulk or the way that their stores are set up and things are on pallets and they don't have to do all these different stocking and things like that. They have specific processes that are built into their business, systems that are built into their business that allow them to charge less for more. And Walmart's the same way, whether it's purchasing power or locations that they're in or how much they pay their employees. They have things set up that allow them to give a lower price product to the end consumer. And as a gym owner, if we simply say we want to be able to provide more for less, we want to provide two coaches in every class, a better coach to athlete ratio, we want to do it for less money because we don't want to be that super expensive gym, all we're doing is putting ourselves in a position to go out of business, to be unprofitable, to be unsuccessful. So we have to think about what is it that's unique about us that allows us to charge it. What's our unique advantage? Is it that we have a massive facility and we have massive classes and we have 40 people per class so we can afford to have two coaches in a class? Or is it that we charge more? Is it that we're going to be charging $250 from the beginning per month, and that's going to allow us to offer a premium service in a premium market? Or maybe we have an internship program that allows us to have a second coach that's an intern that's getting paid less, but it allows us to maintain a profit margin while still having a lead coach that's making good money and then having two coach system in that way. One thing that really drove this point home for me was a couple years ago, we were actually at the immersion at CrossFit New England with Ben Bergeron and his team up there. And I remember being there and having these pretty big classes of 30 plus people, and they only had one coach in every one of their classes. And all their coaches are really good. They do a great job in the classes, but it stood out to me of, okay, why don't they have two coaches in the classes? And I asked them specifically that question. And I remember their answer was, we can't afford it. And they said that specifically, that in the past they used to have two coaches, but now they don't have one coach because they can't afford it. And it's not that they're hurting for members or hurting for money, because they're plenty successful. They're more successful than they've ever been. And I could tell that from being there, and especially with the online programs that they added. And it's not that they were saying that they can't afford it, but what they were really saying was that based on the profit margin that we want to have and how much we want to be able to pay our coaches, we can't afford it. And that's really what I gathered from that statement, was not that they don't really have the money to afford a second coach, because I'm sure they could, but it's that based on the future we want to create and the profit margin we want to have and the career we want to create for our coaches that are here, we can do that by not having two coaches in a class and reserving that money for something better. And what also stood out to me about that is that they also had a front desk staff, one person at the front desk staffed the entire day. So they were saying that they could afford to pay a front desk staff for the entire day, but they could not afford to pay a second coach. And that was a big eye opener for me. I know for me personally as a coach, when I'm on the coaching floor, if I have an 18-person class, I would much rather be by myself on the coaching floor and coaching that class by myself with a really good front desk staff that's going to handle any walk-ins, any waivers, any drop-ins, than a second coach where one of us is going to get pulled away, potentially me getting pulled away to greet someone at the door, to have to help someone with retail or clean the bathrooms or stock toilet paper. I would rather have a front desk person that's taking care of everything outside the class so me as a coach can deliver the best possible experience to the class. And I firmly believe that now at this point in my career that I can deliver a better class experience as a one coach in a class of 20 people than I could just a few years ago as a two coach system with 10, 12, 15 people. So I think your value will increase at time, and that's something to look at with your current staff is what is the expertise, what is their ability, their capacity and ability to handle large classes. But if you have someone like that, I would lean towards more of that CrossFit New England model, which is have a front desk staff first, have a head coach, and once you can afford to pay both of those, make a profit margin, then consider adding the second coach. But if you're adding the second coach without the front desk staff, there's probably things that you could do better on a welcoming people, first impression side, sales, marketing side. I mean, our front desk staff, they're not really super trained in this area, but they become a great sales team for us, more so than a second coach is able to provide value in that area. And since that immersion, we've really leveraged that mindset and done it more confidently in some of our classes. And one of those is with our Beach Fit program. We only have one coach in all of our classes. So we have over 50 classes a week. We have Sunday classes where we get upwards of 40, 50 people in a class. For the most part, Beach Fit is anywhere between 15 and 25 people. But we've committed from the beginning to only having one coach in those classes because the price point of Beach Fit is slightly lower than CrossFit. And that's part of sort of the justification for us is it allows us to make it a cheaper price point by having that one coach in class. And I think if we wanted to have two coaches in a class, we'd have to significantly increase the rate of that Beach Fit program so it would match our CrossFit program. But for us, we see it as this very holistic relationship where people have this low barrier to entry with Beach Fit, and then they can kind of escalate in value, in price point, as they want more coaching, as they want to be able to take on the CrossFit classes. We've also done the same thing on the CrossFit side as well. So with CrossFit, we kind of use attendance as more of our marker, and every month or two, I'll go back into Zen Planner and look at our average attendance numbers. And if a class is averaging under 12 people, then we will take off a second coach. If a class is averaging 14, 15 plus people, then we'll add a second coach to that class. So in the past, it was 10 was kind of the number, and not even 10 consistently because we didn't really have good data. But now we have really good, strong data to make these decisions on. And I would encourage a lot of smaller gyms that are starting out, that are still kind of working out their numbers and figuring out how they're going to make a profit, that you wait until you consistently have 15 people in a class before you add that second coach. But even for us, like I said, on Thursdays, we have we kind of use that as a non-barbell day and almost like an active recovery day, although it's not necessarily like that specifically. But in terms of staffing, we'll only have one coach in all of our CrossFit classes on Thursdays. And that allows us to kind of just be a little bit more smart with our schedule of making sure that we're not overspending on staff where it's not necessary. So if you really want to dial in and you're someone who's doing both the programming and the schedule, you can actually schedule an extra coach in a class or take off that extra coach in a class just based on how technical that workout is and how much real intensive coaching it's going to require. And if you have a day that's less technical, you can actually save some money and put only one coach on that, especially if you have flexibility in your coaches' schedules to take on different class hours. But ultimately, as I pointed out with the CrossFit New England example, having one coach allows us to have that profit margin to invest in other areas of the business. And when I think about that, I'm specifically thinking about being able to pay our current coaches a lot more. So if you have a coach in a class, if you have one coach in a class, you might be able to pay them $30, $35, $40 a class if there's only one coach in that class. If you have two coaches in that class, they could be paid $20, $25 an hour, and that's already $40 to $50 an hour. And if that was going to one coach, that would be a really high pay per hour for that single coach, where now when you break it up in between two coaches, it's nice, it's not a small amount, but it's not something that is really going to be possible for someone to make a career on. And I think that more often than not, when we want to create a career path for our coaches, we don't want the path to be just coach more and more in hours, because people can only handle so much before getting burnt out. We want to have a path that's going to allow them to make more per hour, whether that's in the group class environment or whether that be through outside things like personal training, nutrition coaching, or roles that they might take on outside the gym. Another thing that was really helpful for me is that when coaches go on vacation, be willing to go straight to a one coach system. So instead of trying to overwork yourself or overwork your other coaches into the ground when another coach goes away or gets sick, just go to a one coach system. Even if you have a 20-person class, 25-person class, it's okay to have a week or a couple days for a temporary time where you have one coach in a class that would normally have two. You'll get by, the members will be okay, they'll figure it out, and that can give you a lot of peace of mind, because once you grow your team, every month you're going to have someone going away for one reason or another. And if you're constantly having to jump in to coach classes and get away from your work of growing the business and working on the business, then that's just going to constantly eat away at your time and your ability to do bigger things for the business. The bottom line is that it has to come back to the numbers. You have to have an idea of how many people are attending each class each time of the day and certain days of the week. You have to have an idea of how much you're making per class. What is the average person paying per class? And don't just look at what you charge today, but look at what those people are actually paying, how many times they come in a month, and do the math. I mean, I remember this a couple years ago with us, is before we raised our rates and we added some of the credit card fees, we had people that were legitimately paying $4 or $5 a class to come. And when you do the math on that, it becomes very hard to make a profit. And if you have a bunch of people in a class, even if you have a 15 or 20 person class, if that's what they're paying, then you most likely can't afford to pay two coaches to be in that class. So understand your numbers, use those numbers to guide your decisions, and just be confident that you can stick with that one coach system longer than you need to until the numbers really justify adding that second coach.